Hello Plant ID students, welcome to another week of class. In lecture this week, we learned a little bit about why native plants are important, and we're introduced to some of the first families that we'll be learning about in this semester. I want to talk more about that, but before I do, I want to remind y'all that the exam number 1, is due at the end of the month on the 30th. Don't let that fall off of your radar, because now is a really good time to assess your knowledge and figure out where you want to spend your time studying. And if you want to start amassing questions for Erica or I, do that right now, because we can only answer so many emails right before the exam. I've got 2 hints for you that I think will really help you all out for this class and just in Plant ID in general. So first up, your glossary is such a helpful tool. This is a document that was provided to you, I think, during the first week of class, and that is really just for you to kind of help you remember all of these terms. I highly suggest that you make it a bit of a living document, something that you can add on to each week as we get more and more terms. It's especially going to be helpful to you when you're trying to ID your plants for your plant collection projects, because Lord, in these dichotomous keys, they can get wordy. You are going to have a ton of definitions thrown at you, and if you have a nice glossary handy, you're going to really thank yourself. That goes for the exam too. I think it'll help you out in just organizing your thoughts and making sure you're not getting confused. I know there are a lot of terms that you've probably never encountered before. So number 1, and then number 2, I highly suggest starting an Excel doc as we learn these new plant families. So here's what I would suggest for the organization of a summary document. Each row would be a different plant family. I'm using Solanaceae here as my example. And each column has a different plant trait. And what's nice about this format is that it allows you to add in more families and information as we go along the semester. Because pretty soon we're going to start going through a lot of these families, and it's easy to get confused because there are lots of commonalities between them. And so when you have a format like this, it allows you to see both the commonalities, but also what makes a family more unique. Now please organize this document in whichever way makes sense to you, but I would have some of these major traits always present. So the flower formula is always great to have on hand. You want to tell us a little bit about those major leaf and flower traits, so something like symmetry and leaf placement. I always like to have notable examples of this family. So tobacco, deadly nightshade, tomatillo plants, those are all in the Solanaceae family. And when I see those names, it helps me get an image of what those plants might look like in my mind. Also write down any other traits that you think are useful, that you think would help you remember this family. But again, this document is really just for your benefit, so organize it and add to it in a way that helps you. But I really think that if you start a document like this early on in the semester, you'll thank yourself again later, because it's going to help you with memorizing and keeping all of these families straight. I hope that those tips were helpful to you. If you have any more questions or concerns, remember I'm always ready and eager to answer your emails or meet with you if you're on campus. But for now, let's get into the rest of what I want to talk about today. So in front of me are 3 specimens. They all look quite different, but they are in fact from the same family. I will give you some characteristics of the specimen in front of me, and I'll see if you can guess which family these are a part of. Admittedly, I've already given you a hint. Starting with this one, we see a huge flower. Of course, because this is a pressed specimen, we're not able to get it out and manipulate it, but even this flattened version shows us a lot of good details. So this flower, it's got sepals that are fused quite a ways up. Also petals that are also fused in the same way. Here we have an individual with some very pretty notable flowers there. These leaves are simple and alternate. Same with this one, simple and alternate leaves. And if you look at this structure right here, it should be a big hint as to what this thing is. I have some flower specimen here too. This flower is the exact same one as this, only it's been stored in alcohol, so of course it's much easier to manipulate. I know this is pretty far away, so trust me when I give you its characteristics here. It has 5 sepals and 5 petals. These structures here are anthers. There are 5 of those, and they're all kind of pointing inwards towards the style of the gynoecium. Here is another flower from the same family. Here are the sepals down here, 5 sepals and 5 petals, fused much of the way of the flower, similar to the first example we saw. And to give you even more hints, I know you can't tell, we need to do some dissections to figure this out, but there are also 2 carpels in the gynoecium. So this is a perfect, complete flower with actinomorphic symmetry. Can y'all guess what family all of these are from? Yes, indeed, Solanaceae. So let's go back to some of these examples. So this right here is gypsum weed collected from California. This is a silver nightshade. And here is a physalis, or a ground cherry. You can see these tomatillo-like structures here. And this family is known for these persistent calyxes here. And it's also known for like a folding in the leaves. And admittedly, these specimens make it difficult to see, but just remember, if you see kind of some folds, some creases in the flowers, that's a hint that you might be looking at a nightshade. I also want to point out this convergence here of all of these anthers. This is a connivent structure here, with all of the anthers pointing inward towards the style. That's another great hint that you're looking at a nightshade plant. And with that, let us move on to another family of species. All right, this is the last example we'll look at today. These are 2 more plants from a different family, and note that they look quite different from one another. Their leaves are different, their structures are different. This one has a very interesting kind of like bifurcating form that in the wild would lay very flat to the ground, where this one has a much more vertical form. And so there are a couple of traits we could look at here, but looking at these flowers up towards the top of this plant, I can tell that's where we want to start looking, because I see some interesting traits in there. I have more flowers that were preserved in alcohol here. Here is a cluster, and I know that, once again, y'all are pretty limited in what y'all can see there. But here within my tweezers are 1 flower, and I'm seeing a lot of male structures down here. But then, whoopsie, I ripped it off. I'm also seeing this strange structure coming out at the top of the flower. Here's one that I did not mess up. And same thing, there's a strange bulbous structure coming out of the top of this flower. Here's another example from a different species. Very, very interesting flowers. And these are actually nectar glands at the base of this flower. But such interesting flowers. When you see this out in the wild, it is telling you that it is a euphorbia. These are the euphorbia flowers that are just so strange and so wild. So we have let's see, we've got a flower here with a lot of these reproductive structures, and then this female flower that sticks out above it. Honestly, I love this species. It is so delightfully weird. This here is Euphorbia glyptospermum. I see this everywhere. I see it around campus, I see it in my grasslands. It seemingly grows in a lot of different places. And this is called green spurge. I actually believe it's invasive around here. But yeah, when you see those strange flowers, your first thought should automatically be euphorbia. And then from there, I would start doing dissections and take your time with these flowers. And so you can really see all their different parts and also see just how different these flowers are, even just from kind of cluster to cluster. All right, I think that's all I have for y'all today. Any questions, let me know, and I will talk to y'all next week. See ya.